Good evening everyone, Elphaba says hello. I hope you've had a good day, and tonight Elphaba and I are going to read you your Bible bedtime story from Samuel 1. Are you sitting comfortably? Well, if not, then you have to get comfortable because I'm about to start. Do you remember us telling you about the story about King Saul and his servant David with his harp? Well, Saul had a son called Jonathan, who is very close to David, just like I am with Elphaba. In fact, he loved David almost as much as he loved himself. They were really good friends. After the arguments I told you about last time, Saul kept David with him, and he did not want to let him go home. Jonathan swore an eternal friendship with David. Jonathan even took off his robe that he was wearing and gave it to David, together with his armor and his sword, bow and belt. David was very successful in all of the missions he was sent on by Saul. And because of David's victory in all of the missions, Saul made him an officer in his army, which pleased all of Saul's officers and men. As David was returning after killing Goliath, and the soldiers were coming back home, women in every town came out to see King Saul. They were singing joyful songs, dancing and playing tambourines and lyres. They're an old musical instrument. In the celebrations they sung, Saul has killed thousands, but David has killed tens of thousands. This angered Saul. He said, "For David, they claim tens of thousands, but only thousands for me. They'll be making him king next." And so Saul was jealous and became very suspicious of David from that day on. The next day, an evil spirit suddenly took control of Saul, and he raved in his house like a madman. David was playing the harp, as he did every day, and Saul was holding his spear. "I'll pin him against the wall," Saul said to himself, and he threw the spear towards David twice, but David dodged them twice. Saul was afraid of David, because he knew that the Lord was with him. So Saul sent David away and put him in command of 10,000 men. David led his men into battle and was successful in what he did, because the Lord was with him. Saul noticed David's success and became even more afraid of him. But everyone in Israel and Judah loved David because he was such a successful leader. Saul said to David, "Here is my elder daughter, Merab. I will give her to you as a wife on a condition that you will serve me as a brave and loyal soldier and fight the Lord's battles." Saul was thinking that in this way the Philistines could kill David, so Saul wouldn't have to do it himself. But David responded, "Who am I, and what is my family that I should be the king's son-in-law?" But when the time came that Merab was meant to be given to David, she was already married to Adriel from Melahoa. Saul's daughter Michal, however, had fallen in love with David, and when Saul heard this, he was pleased. He said to himself, "I'll give Michal to David. I'll use her to trap him, and then he'll be killed by the Philistines." So for the second time, Saul said to David, "You will be my son-in-law." Saul ordered his officials to speak privately with David, and he told them to tell him, "The king is pleased with you, and his officials like you. Now is a good time for you to marry his daughter." David answered, "It is a great honor to become the king's son-in-law, but too great for someone poor and insignificant like me." The officers told Saul what David had said, and Saul ordered his officials to tell David, "All the king wants from you as a payment for the bride is proof of 100 dead Philistines as revenge on his enemy." This is how Saul again planned to have David killed by the Philistines. Saul's officials reported to David what Saul had said, and David was delighted with the thought of becoming the king's son-in-law. Before the day of the wedding, David and his men went and killed 200 Philistines. David took his proof to the king and counted it out to him, so that he could become his son-in-law. So Saul had to give his daughter Michal in marriage to David. Saul realized clearly that the Lord was with David, and also that his daughter Michal was in love with him. Saul became more afraid of David and was Saul's enemy for as long as he lived. The Philistine army would come to fight, but in every battle David was more successful than any other of Saul's officials. As a result, David became very famous. Saul told his son Jonathan and his officials that he planned to kill David, but Jonathan was still very fond of David. And so he told him, "My father is trying to kill you. Please be careful tomorrow morning. Hide in some secret place and stay there. I will go and stand with my father in the field where you are hiding and speak to him about you. If I find anything out, I will let you know." Jonathan praised David to Saul. He said, "Sir, don't do wrong by your servant David. He has never done any wrong. On the contrary, everything he has done has been a great help to you. He risked his life when he killed Goliath, and the Lord won a great victory for Israel. When you saw it, you were glad. Why then do you want to do wrong by an innocent man and kill David for no reason whatsoever?" Saul was convinced by what Jonathan had said and made a vow in the Lord's name that he would not kill David. So Jonathan called for David and told him everything. Jonathan took David to Saul, and he served the king as he had before. War with the Philistines broke out again, and when David attacked them, they fled. Another day, the same evil spirit took control of Saul that took control of him earlier. He was sitting in his house with a spear in his hand again, and David was there playing his harp. Saul tried to pin David against the wall with his spear, but David dodged, and the spear stuck into the wall. David ran away and escaped. That same night, Saul sent 2 men to watch David's house and kill him the next morning. David's wife, Michal, warned him, "If you don't get away tonight, tomorrow morning you will be dead." She let him down from a window, and he ran away as he escaped. Then she took an household idol, laid it in the bed with a pillow made out of goat's hair, and put a cover over it. When Saul's men came to get David, Michal told them that he was ill, but Saul sent them back to see David for themselves. Saul ordered them, "Carry him here in his bed and I'll kill him." They went inside and found the household idol in the bed with the goat's hair pillow at its head. Saul told Michal, "Why did you let my enemy escape?" She answered, "He would kill me if I didn't help him escape." Meanwhile, when David escaped, he went to Samuel in Ramah and told him everything that Saul had done to him. Then he and Samuel went to Naioth and stayed there. Saul was told that David was in Naioth, so he sent some men to arrest him. When they arrived, they saw a group of prophets dancing and shouting with Samuel their leader. The Spirit of God took control over Saul's men. They also began to dance and shout. When Saul heard of this, he sent more messengers, and they were also filled with the Lord's Spirit, and began to dance and shout. He sent messengers a 3rd time, and the same thing happened. Saul set out for Ramah himself, and when he came to a large well in Seku, he asked where Samuel and David were. He was told that they were at Naioth. As he was going there, the Spirit of God took control of him, and he also danced and shouted all the way to Naioth. When he got there, he found David and Samuel, and they all danced together. I hope you enjoyed this story. Did you enjoy it, Elphaba? Good. Now let's say a prayer before we go to sleep. Dear God, please fill us with your Spirit like you did with David, and make us dance and shout with joy in the hard times. And please look over everyone as we sleep tonight, and as restrictions lift and we slowly go back to reality. Amen. Now, snuggle down and have a good night's sleep, everyone. Good night.